Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the book Siddhartha, written by Hermann Hesse. Now, this novel is very interesting. It really teaches us what enlightenment means, how to find enlightenment, and how the main character of this book tried to define what enlightenment is. Before I go into the summary and explanation of this book, please leave a like and subscribe or leave a comment to help the channel grow. So, this book begins with a kid by the name of Siddhartha. Siddhartha, externally, he has everything that a kid would want. He has loving parents, he has a great family. He's a good looking person, so girls are attracted to him. And he has everything on the external level that a growing child would need. But he's not satisfied with his life. So, in the beginning of the novel, he tells his dad that he's going to leave. He's going to find his true way to find enlightenment. At first, his father is not happy. His father doesn't want him to go, but he ends up letting Siddhartha making his own decision, and Siddhartha goes off into the wilderness to find his true way of enlightenment, to find enlightenment. The person that goes with him is his best friend by the name of Govinda. Govinda is also just like Siddhartha, and he's trying to find happiness. He's trying to find enlightenment. He's trying to understand the world, the people in it, and life in general. So they go off. They become beggars. They leave their life of comfort behind, and they start begging. And they don't have any worldly possessions. No house. No access to food or money or anything. They just go off and find this other community that's all about fighting enlightenment. They don't seek anything. They don't seek the business or the humanistic materials that people often seek in life. This community is all about finding enlightenment and the pursuit of that single thing, enlightenment. So Siddhartha has these monks, these teachers that are teaching him how to behave, how to think, how to practice. They're pretty much, I wouldn't say religion, but in many ways it is a religion, a way of thinking, a way of being, a way of acting. Govinda is alright with this. He finds that the teachers that he has are helping him, but Siddhartha, he becomes discontent with this community, and he comes to find that he's not satisfied, he's not happy living in this community. And throughout the whole novel, Siddhartha has that type of personality where if he's on a path and he doesn't enjoy the path and the path doesn't fit him, he's going to leave it. He's not going to stay there. And that's Siddhartha's mentality. He's the type of person, if something is not connecting to his personality, if something is not connecting with what he wants, he will leave it and find a different way. In the novel, Govinda and Siddhartha, they part ways here. So Govinda wants to stay with the monks, the teachers. He wants to find the Buddha and learn from the Buddha. And Siddhartha, he becomes this type of person. He wants to go off and find enlightenment a different way, because to him, this way of learning, of reading sacred scrolls, or of learning from teachers, he doesn't believe in that way of enlightenment. He doesn't believe that he's going to find enlightenment by listening to another person who um, has enlightenment. So they part ways. Siddhartha, he goes on his way, and Govinda stays within this community. Now, next, what happens is that Siddhartha meets this ferryman who gets him across the river. The ferryman is a very important person. He becomes a very important figure later in the novel. But when they first meet, they're just on a first name basis. They don't have a connection between them. But Siddhartha does notice that this ferryman has peace, or he's very peaceful, or there's something about him that is very peaceful. So Siddhartha goes into the city. He goes into the city, and throughout his journey, he encounters different things. But when he gets to the city, he meets this woman by the name of Kamala. Kamala teaches Siddhartha the ways of sex, right? And as a monk, he wasn't used to that world. He wasn't used to the world of lust and pleasures, of riches. And before he can even get to be Kamala's partner or anything like that. Kamala tells him that you have to have money in order for me to be with you. Kamala tells him right away that she'll only be with him if he has riches. So he goes on, he becomes a merchant, he learns the merchant business, and he kind of brings his monk background to it. He doesn't, a lot of merchant, a lot of businessmen, they have a lot of stress, depression, anxiety. But Siddhartha, he treats business like an experience. He doesn't put too much weight on anything. He doesn't put worries. If he loses something, he loses it. If he gains something, he gains it. He doesn't, put any value on anything. But later, this changes because he starts to become greedy. He starts to become lustful. He starts to become a regular human who is seeking after the treasures, after the goods of the world, and he forgets about his monk, or his peaceful side. When he started this city life, he had it with him, but slowly and meticulously and gradually, he loses the peace that he had. He loses the tranquility that he carried about his being, around his being. And eventually he does end up with Kamala. Kamala teaches him how to use his body in sexual acts. Kamala teaches him how to love, how to lust, how to want things. And sooner or later he gets bored of Kamala. And one interesting thing that happens in the book, as the novel goes along, he starts to realize that Kamala is getting older, and there's a fear with getting older because that suggests you're going to die. That's why people hate gray hairs. That's why people hate wrinkles. Because even though on the surface some people say, you want to look younger, you want to look better, but in the deeper level, people hate gray hairs or signs of aging because it really suggests that you are going to die. So when Siddhartha first meets Kamala, she's young, radiant, beautiful, and he loves her. Well, not really. Siddhartha doesn't love anything. His one love is to be enlightened. He doesn't have this like attachment to anything. Within the novel, he transforms from a poor man to a rich man to a peaceful man to a greedy man to a lustful man. So his being is always changing, always moving. He's not fighting the tides. He's always going with the flow. So after living in the city for a while and becoming rich and having Kamala, Siddhartha, he says, I don't want to be a rich man anymore. He doesn't have that passion, and he starts to think about his old life as a monk, as a peaceful man, and he leaves the city life behind. He goes back to the ferryman. He crosses the river, and he almost commits suicide because he doesn't know the right path to enlightenment. Because he's gone through to the Buddhist side, he's gone through the peaceful side, to the city life, to the greed, to lust, to all types of human experiences, through all types of human emotion, and he still hasn't found his way to enlightenment. And so he thinks about throwing himself in the river and committing suicide, and he almost did. But at the last minute, he reverts and he remembers his words of the teachings that he had learned as a child, and he kind of relapses, or he's rebirthed into this new man. His self of lust, of riches, of greed is kind of washed away, and this new version of Siddhartha is born. This new version of Siddhartha, which is better than any other version, and he finds peace. Now, Siddhartha, he meets Govinda before, like when he was about to commit suicide, he meets Govinda, and Govinda meets Siddhartha. They meet a lot of times in this novel, but each time Govinda does not recognize Siddhartha, because every time Siddhartha meets Govinda, he goes through a transformation. Sometimes when he meets some, Siddhartha is old or poor or rich or not rich, or it just fluctuates, because again, Siddhartha is this type of person. He doesn't stay constant, right? He's always moving, he's always fluctuating, he's always, his body, his being, his spirit is always going through a different form, a different shape. But Govinda, on the other hand, he is all about this one path, and this is the one path he's been following since he was a child. So they both are looking for enlightenment. They both are looking for peace, but they have different ways of finding it. So in the last part of the novel, Siddhartha goes to the ferryman, and he sees that the ferryman is a man of peace. He sees that the ferryman is a man who is peaceful, and in some ways, the ferryman has found enlightenment. So Siddhartha becomes the ferryman's pupil, and he's trying to figure out how is this man enlightened when he is not searching for enlightenment like I am. And after staying with the ferryman for a while, Siddhartha realized that the ferryman's teacher is the river. The river has been talking to the ferryman for years upon years upon years. And after being the ferryman's student for a while, Siddhartha realizes that the river is probably the best teacher that he's ever had. The river reveals to Siddhartha that everything is always changing. Everything is connected, past, present, and future. They all exist. They're all around. And one of the biggest things that Siddhartha realizes is that time is a man-made thing. And a lot of people forget this, that time, clocks, the measurement of time, the measurement of the day, of the years, mankind made that up, right? The earth doesn't have a clock on it, right? The universe doesn't have a clock on it. Time, the concept of time is a man-made thing. Past, present, future, that's all man-made. We made those ideas or those concepts up to define our beings, to define our lives, to define our generations, to define when we were born, when we die, when we live, when this happened, when that happened. Time is a man-made thing, and the river reveals to Siddhartha that don't put yourself in the confines of time. Don't put yourself in the box of time, because the river, it's an eternal thing, right? The river, if you think about precipitation, it's a cycle, and the river, it takes all forms, to a gas, to a liquid. It can do to a solid. So the river teaches Siddhartha there's not one way to be something. There are multiple different ways, and ways can intertwine. Now, one of the biggest things that Siddhartha believes in within this novel is that the only way to enlightenment is by experiencing things, by experiencing life, by experiencing all that life has to offer. Siddhartha doesn't believe in looking for, or finding enlightenment through teachings, and that's a contradiction to what happens in the novel. And we'll come back to that later. The next thing that happens in this novel is that Kamala um, is going to see a man that has been enlightened, the Buddha. And in the novel, near the end of the novel, the Buddha is about to die, and Kamala takes her son. She has a son, but Siddhartha doesn't know about this. And when we meet the Kamala, we know that she has a son, and the son is her son is named Siddhartha. So it's Siddhartha's kid. So Kamala is in a rush. She's trying to meet the Buddha before he dies, and everybody's trying to meet the Buddha at this point because everybody knows him to be a man of enlightenment. But what happens is Kamala ends up dying. A snake ends up biting her, and she dies. And Siddhartha's son is left without a mother, and he does meet his father, but they're both different people. Kamala was from the city. She was quite wealthy for herself, and she raised her son in the lap of luxury, on the lap of luxury. And little Siddhartha did not want to do what his father is doing. He did not want to be a poor man. He did not want to be a man who lives by the river, or a man who's searching enlightenment. Little Siddhartha wanted to be a man or a person that seeks luxury, that seeks riches. And Siddhartha, he has a hard time accepting this because he loves his son. He loves, his creation per se. He loves the fact that he created something, and that's his son, and he wants his son to stay with him. But his son has differing views. So it's kind of like a reflection, because the same way that Siddhartha wanted to leave his father to find his own way, is the same way that his son leaves Siddhartha to find his own way. So Siddhartha gets a little bit of karma at that juncture. So Kamala dies. Siddhartha's son goes off into the city, and Siddhartha has nothing to do. He can't do anything. That's the path that his son wants to follow. So Siddhartha goes back with the ferryman to the river, and they keep doing their job of transporting people across the river. And they both become really wise, and they both obtain enlightenment. They both obtain what it means. They understand, or they have the wisdom of what it means to be alive, to be present, and they're not putting themselves in the inside the box that man have has created, right? The box where you have to look or search or seek lust, to seek riches, to seek treasure, to seek different types of things. They're just on the river, listening to the river and seeing how all life is connected, how everything on earth or everything in the universe perhaps is connected. And the old ferryman, he ends up leaving Siddhartha. He goes off into the woods to find, um, to I guess his retirement, to just go off into the woods and spend the rest of his days. Siddhartha stays on the river, and he listens to the river. He's being taught, right. The river is Siddhartha's teacher. Before the novel ends, Siddhartha meets Govinda, and Govinda is on Siddhartha's boat, and they're on the river, and Govinda realizes that this this ferryman is very peaceful, even though that this ferryman is not a monk. It looks as if this ferryman has enlightenment, and Govinda asks the ferryman, teach me. He tells the ferryman to teach me. And the ferryman says, "You don't even recognize who I am." And when Govinda questions, he finds that the ferryman is Siddhartha. So these two, Govinda is surprised. Once again, he's met his best friend again, um, and he can't understand who his best friend is. His best friend is a totally different person. And Govinda says to Siddhartha, "How have you found enlightenment? Because I've been listening to teachers, I've been experiencing different things and reading different scrolls and different books, but I can't find enlightenment. How have you found it?" And Siddhartha tells him that enlightenment is not something that is given, or it's not something that can be taught, it's something that is experienced. And that saying, or that quote, or that idea from Siddhartha, to me, I feel like it's a contradiction, because what happens is, and this is what makes it a contradiction, at the very end of the novel, Siddhartha makes Govinda kiss his forehead, and through that way, Govinda is able to experience enlightenment, or he becomes enlightened, because after he kisses Siddhartha's forehead, he's able to see all these faces, all these different faces that are being destroyed and being created and being connected or disconnected. So the same way that the river revealed to Siddhartha that everything is connected, that everything is intertwined, is the same way that Govinda sees all these interconnections, or all these disconnections and reconnections after kissing Siddhartha's forehead. So Siddhartha had the belief that you can only reach enlightenment through experiencing things, but that's not true, because Govinda was able to find enlightenment by having teachers. Because Siddhartha was his teacher, and by kissing the head of one of his teachers, he found enlightenment too. So I think the biggest thing that this novel explains is that there's not one way to find enlightenment. There's not one way to understand the world. There's not one way to find happiness, or to understand purpose. I think everything is intertwined and everything is interconnected, because Siddhartha and Govinda um, were both able to find enlightenment. And there's other characters within this novel that they found their own version of enlightenment. Kamala, her version of enlightenment was sex, and that's how she defined enlightenment for herself. That like she, in many ways, Siddhartha describes her as a person who knew the ins and out of that trade or that practice. So she had her own piece or her own version of enlightenment, and we can't say that's wrong because Siddhartha went through lust, he went through greed, he went through all human emotions to find his way through enlightenment. By experiencing all that life had to offer, he found his path, and so did Govinda, and so did the Buddha and other monks. So this novel really, it destroys the boundaries that humankind have set, because humankind, we created all the things that we believe in, the concepts, the ideas. It's all man made. It's all man created. So to find enlightenment in many ways is to not focus um, on the constructs that have been created already. To find enlightenment in many ways, according to this book, is to find it your individual way, because enlightenment can mean different things to different people. So yeah, that's the novel. It's a very interesting novel, a very interesting way to look at peace and to look at life. Siddhartha doesn't tell anybody to do what he did, to go out and seek all the pleasures of the world, to seek all the pains, because he went through the pains, the traumas, the pleasures, the happiness. He went through all of it, and in the end, he was able to find his own peace. So, in many ways, the novel is saying, "Go find your own peace in your own way," and that is the ultimate message, I think, that is being portrayed within this novel. So that is my summary and explanation, guys. Please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.